Brexit, May expected to meet Corbyn to tackle deadlock. Video.
I've always been clear that we could make a success of no deal in the long term. But leaving with a deal is the best solution. So we will need a further extension of Article 50, one that is as short as possible and which ends when we pass a deal. And we need to be clear what such an extension is for, to ensure we leave in a timely and orderly way. This debate, this division, cannot drag on much longer. It is putting members of Parliament and everyone else under immense pressure, and it is doing damage to our politics. Despite the best efforts of MPs, the process that the House of Commons has tried to lead has not come up with an answer. So today I am taking action to break the logjam. I'm offering to sit down with the Leader of the Opposition and to try to agree a plan that we would both stick to ensure that we leave the European Union and that we do so with a deal. Any plan would have to agree the current withdrawal agreement. It has already been negotiated with the 27 other members, and the EU has repeatedly said that it cannot and will not be reopened. What we need to focus on is our future relationship with the EU. The ideal outcome of this process would be to agree an approach on a future relationship that delivers on the result of the referendum, that both the Leader of the Opposition and I could put to the House for approval, and which I could then take to next week's European Council. However, if we cannot agree on a single unified approach, then we would instead agree a number of options for the future relationship that we could put to the House in a series of votes to determine which course to pursue. Crucially, the government stands ready to abide by the decision of the House. But to make this process work, the opposition would need to agree to this too. The government would then bring forward the withdrawal agreement bill. We would want to agree a timetable for this bill to ensure it is passed before the 22nd of May, so that the United Kingdom need not take part in European parliamentary elections. This is a difficult time for everyone. Passions are running high on all sides of the argument. But we can and must find the compromises that will deliver what the British people voted for. This is a decisive moment in the story of these islands, and it requires national unity to deliver the national interest.
Theresa May is expected to meet Jeremy Corbyn later after she said she wanted to work with the Labour leader to break the Brexit deadlock. The Prime Minister hopes she and Mr Corbyn can come up with a modified version of her withdrawal deal with the EU that can secure the backing of MPs. Mr Corbyn says he wants a customs union and workers' rights to be priorities. Meanwhile, a cross-party group of MPs will attempt to push through legislation to stop a no-deal Brexit. Mrs May announced her plan to meet Mr Corbyn, as well as her intention to ask the EU for an extension to the Brexit deadline, after more than 7 hours of talks with her cabinet on Tuesday. The move angered Brexiteers in her party, including former Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson, who accused her of entrusting the final handling of Brexit to Labour. BBC political editor Laura Quinsberg says it means the Prime Minister is likely to adopt a closer relationship with the EU, a softer Brexit, than she has agreed so far. The UK was supposed to leave the EU on 29 March. But Mrs May agreed a short extension after MPs refused to endorse her withdrawal deal. Attempts by MPs to find an alternative way out of the impasse also failed for the second time this week. The UK now has until 12 April to propose a plan to the EU, which must be accepted by the bloc, or it will leave without a deal on that date. Mrs May said she wanted to agree a new plan with Mr Corbyn and put it to a vote in the Commons before 10 April. When the EU will hold an emergency summit on Brexit. If the two leaders do not agree a single way forward, Mrs May said a number of options would be put to MPs to determine which course to pursue. In either event, she said she would ask the EU for a further short extension to the Brexit date to hopefully get an agreement passed by Parliament before 22 May so the UK does not have to take part in European elections. The final decision on the delay rests with the EU. The BBC's Europe editor Katja Adler said that while Brussels welcomed discussions between the PM and Mr Corbyn, its demands had not changed and it was likely to put strict conditions on any further extension. Video.
When I saw it on the television this afternoon, I listened very carefully to her statement and I've since read a copy of it, and of course I'm very happy to meet her. We need to have a discussion with the Prime Minister. We need to ensure that Parliament has an opportunity to vote on proposals that can prevent us crashing out of the EU in the end of next week. And we also need to ensure that we give security and certainty to the people of this country that there will not be a crashing out at the end of this process.
What will your negotiating position be when you meet the Prime Minister? What will you be demanding of her?
We've put forward our proposals, which are to ensure there is a customs union with the European Union, that there is access to those markets, and above all, there's protections of our standards of consumer, environmental and of course workers' rights. And we'll ensure that those are there on the table so that there is no danger of crashing out. But we're also very clear that there has to be an absolute guarantee that the Good Friday Agreement maintains, so we continue with the process of peace in Northern Ireland.
Would you be willing to meet the Prime Minister somewhere in the middle, perhaps around a customs union, a simpler solution rather than the extra guarantees that you want?
We voted for a customs union in the House yesterday. It narrowly lost. We understand the importance of it because that helps to maintain trade. We will meet the Prime Minister. We recognise that she has made a move. I recognise my responsibility to represent the people that supported Labour in the last election and the people who didn't support Labour but nevertheless want certainty and security for their own future. And that's the basis on which we will meet her, and we'll have those discussions, and proposals will be put to Parliament, to understand, early next week, so that we can avoid crashing out at the end of next week and we can guarantee the protection of those jobs and that trade in the future.
So it sounds as if you are in a compromising mood, potentially.
I have been meeting MPs from all parties over the last couple of weeks, long discussions with a lot of colleagues, and it's been a very interesting process. And yes, there is some common ground, there are some areas that it's very difficult to agree on, but the principles have to be, as I've set out, that however people voted in the referendum in 2016, whether they voted Remain or they voted Leave, they didn't vote for lower living standards, they didn't vote to lose their jobs, and actually there's far more that unites people on both sides about the kind of society we can be than divides them.
Mr Corbyn said he was very happy to meet Mrs May and recognised his own responsibility to try to break the deadlock. Labour has previously said it has 6 tests for judging any final Brexit deal, including protecting workers' rights, establishing a permanent customs union with the EU and securing the same benefits of being in the single market the UK has currently. She was for budging. The Prime Minister has made her priority leaving the EU with a deal, rather than the happy contentment of the Brexiteers in the Tory party. For so long, Theresa May has been derided by her rivals, inside and outside, for cleaving to the idea that she can get the country and her party through this process intact. But after her deal was defeated at the hands of Eurosceptics, in the words of one cabinet minister in the room during that marathon session today, she tried delivering Brexit with Tory votes. Tory Brexiteers said no. Now she's going to try to deliver Brexit with Labour votes? In a way, it is as simple as that. Read Laura's full blog here. The offer of talks with the Labour leader provoked a backlash among Brexiteers, with Boris Johnson saying Brexit was becoming soft to the point of disintegration. Jacob Rees-Mogg added, "To decide you'd rather be supported by a Marxist than by your own party is unwise." Northern Ireland's Democratic Unionist Party, which helps prop up Mrs May's government but has repeatedly voted against her deal, said, "It remains to be seen if subcontracting out the future of Brexit to Jeremy Corbyn, someone whom the Conservatives have demonised for 4 years, will end happily." However, Environment Secretary Michael Gove, himself a leading Brexiteer, said he backed the talks with Labour because he wanted to ensure that minds are concentrated so that we do leave. After Mrs May's statement, the President of the European Council, Donald Tusk, called for patience. European leaders have been intensifying plans to cope with a possible no deal, particularly surrounding the border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. Video.
Well, I think it's very disappointing that the Brexit process has now been entrusted to Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party, and I think that the result will almost certainly be, if Corbyn gets his way, that we remain in the customs union, so that we can't control our trade policy. The huge areas of lawmaking we can't control. And Brexit is becoming soft to the point of disintegration.
We could be moving into a position where Parliament, where the majority in the House of Commons calls the shots. What would you say to that?
Well, I think Parliament should think about our responsibilities. They should think about what people were promised in 2016, and they should deliver a Brexit that really allows us to take back control of our money, our borders, and our laws. And this really doesn't qualify, because you don't take back control of your laws, and you can't do free trade deals if you remain in the customs union. And I think that people will feel very shortchanged, and they will be bitterly disappointed. It can't last. This approach cannot endure. You cannot expect the fifth biggest economy in the world to come out of the EU and remain run by the EU. It's just not democratically sustainable. And for those of us who campaigned for Brexit and who believe in it and who believe in the opportunities of Brexit, it is bitterly disappointing. What I hope is that there is still time for the Prime Minister to get an improvement to the deal that she has, or just to get her existing deal through, which is frankly better now than the chaos of having a Corbyn-controlled customs union.
Meanwhile, backbench MPs have tabled a bill to try to stop the UK leaving the EU without a deal on 12 April. If passed into law, the bill, presented by Labour MP Yvette Cooper, would require the PM to ask for an extension of Article 50 beyond that deadline. Normally, the government chooses which bills to present to Parliament, but MPs previously voted to allow backbenchers to take charge of business in the Commons on Wednesday, meaning Ms Cooper can bring hers. Please upgrade your browser. Your guide to Brexit jargon. Use the list below or select a button.